I'm going to give some context, a backstory before we talk about the branding side. So 1 year ago, I learned about the escalation between the Palestinian and Israelis on my desk over YouTube, just before I logged in for work. Back in October 2023, a sudden and violent escalation between Hamas and Israel shocked the world. Hamas, the Palestinian militant group governing Gaza, launched an unprecedented and large-scale attack on Israel, which included rocket airstrikes and incursions into Israeli territory. This assault, known as Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, marked a significant escalation in the long-standing Israel-Palestine conflict. Hamas fighters breached several locations across the heavily fortified Gaza-Israeli barrier, entering Israeli towns and settlements by land, air, and sea, which has taken the Israelis by surprise. The group also launched thousands of rockets into Israeli territory, overwhelming some parts of the country's seemingly impenetrable Iron Dome defense system. The large scale of the sneak attack was staggering, resulting in over 1,400 Israeli deaths in the assault, including civilians and soldiers. This was one of the deadliest attacks on Israel in its history. In response, Israel declared war on Hamas, launching airstrikes on Gaza that resulted in significant casualties. The situation rapidly evolved into full-scale conflict, with Gaza experiencing relentless bombardments and counterattack, causing over 7,000 Palestinian deaths by the end of October 2023. According to reports from the Palestinian authorities and humanitarian organizations, it was later revealed that Hamas had spent 2 years planning this attack, carefully organizing and coordinating efforts under the radar of Israeli intelligence. Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar, described the operation as a retaliation for years of Israeli occupation, blockades, and what they describe as systemic operation or oppression of the Palestinian people. The violence that followed left thousands dead on both sides as intensified and severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza, deepening global divisions over the conflict. I will leave links to some of my research in the description. In Malaysia, a predominantly Muslim country, public sentiment overwhelmingly supported the Palestinians. The attack reignited a deep-seated anger and frustration with Israel's policy towards Palestinians and translated into a wave of activism. Growing up, I've always remembered that on the Malaysian passport, there's this page, and it says that Malaysians are free to enter and visit any country except Israel. So Malaysians never had any diplomatic relationship with Israel for a long time. Following the deadly response from Israel's counterattack, Malaysians, driven by years of frustration over the ongoing conflict, immediately took to social media to express their outrage. Social media platforms were flooded with calls for solidarity with Palestine, especially the victims. Many saw the attack as a symbol of the desperation of the Palestinian people after decades of oppression. In response, the Malaysian public channeled their anger into action, launching a boycott movement that would soon target major international brands with ties to Israel or seemingly ties in our local stores. So the global reaction was polarized. Some condemned the attack from Hamas as terrorism, while others view it as a form of resistance against Israeli aggression. In Malaysia, the sentiment seemingly overwhelmingly favored the Palestinian cause, with large portions of the Malay Muslim population feeling compelled to take a stand. This movement wasn't just about boycotting products. It reflected political identity and call for solidarity with the oppressed people. Thus, the boycott movement began, aimed at brands perceived to have connections to Israel or companies believed to support Israel's policies. Major brands, including McDonald's, KFC, Nestle, Starbucks, and Adidas, were topping the list of companies to be boycotted until today. This consumer activism began a significant shift in the Malaysian marketplace over the past 12 months. The boycott against global brands started almost immediately after the escalation in Gaza. Social media users urged Malaysians to boycott for Palestine, and anger was directed at household brands like McDonald's, long accused of having links to the Israeli military. An accusation that McDonald's Malaysia has consistently denied because, well, as we all know, McD is owned by the Saudis. in Malaysia. It then spread to other fast food giants like KFC and Starbucks, operated by the Berjaya Group, and it also hit our favorite Maggi Mee and milk staple, Nestle. Sportswear brands such as Adidas and Puma were quickly added to the boycott list. The campaign against these brands, driven by public calls on social media, became a powerful expression of solidarity with Palestine. Influential public figures, from social media influencers to religious leaders and politicians, joined in the movement, calling the public to avoid supporting these businesses. As a result, the boycott gained traction and became more than just a consumer movement. It transformed into a socio-political statement. As the boycott grew, it took on a more politically motivated tone. 2 months after it happened, in December 2023, a significant shift occurred when KK Mart, a local convenience store chain, became the target of boycott over the phrase "Allah" misprinted on sock on sale. The recent incidents at KK Mart bring attention to a larger problem of political extremism affecting businesses in Malaysia. The Buy Muslim First campaign, which began in late 2018/early 2019, has been misused by far-right groups to discredit products owned by non-Muslims, even the ones with halal certification. I remember these were spreading like wildfire over WhatsApp groups and social media when KK Mart was targeted with petrol bombs. Then, in late 2023, Zeus Coffee faced a boycott due to its logo, which some people claimed resembled a Greek deity. I also remember that in my younger days, there was this cute Dota character called Zeus. I saw the resemblance. However, the company had to respond, claiming it was Kaldi's image. Kaldi is an Ethiopian shepherd who discovered coffee. There have also been attempts by vigilante groups to limit the sale of alcoholic beverages in areas where majority of the population is Malay Muslim. In a separate incident in 2023, International brand Swatch was in hot water selling LGBT themed watches, which led to a raid and a ban by Malaysian authorities. If you are watching this video from outside Malaysia currently, it is illegal to have same-sex relationships, and Malaysia does not recognize same-sex relations and marriage at this moment. This escalation from targeting international corporations to local businesses reflected the political undercurrents of the boycott movement. Political figures sometimes capitalize on the boycott to highlight government action or inaction on the Palestinian issue, further driving division in public opinion to add fuel to the fire. The boycott was no longer just about consumer activism. It became a statement of political identity and allegiance in Malaysia. Like a virus, it has evolved into a side narrative that will then eventually take center stage. Alongside the boycott, many Malaysians sought to offer financial support to the Palestinian cause. However, this also led to several cases of fraudulent fundraising where organizations collected funds under the guise of sending aid to Gaza but were later found guilty of misconduct. One prominent case involved an NGO, Aman Palestine, and its CEO, who was charged with misappropriation of funds amounting to over 39 million ringgit. There were also petty donation scams claiming to raise funds for Palestine by non-registered NGOs. There were also social media influencers like Alif Tega, who was charged for the alleged misappropriation of funds amounting to over 60,000 ringgit that was supposed to go towards supporting the Palestinians. These scandals robbed public trust and raised concerns about transparency and accountability of organizations collecting donations for Palestine. As a result, Malaysians became more cautious about this issue and where they donated their money, and the conversation shifted towards ensuring that the contributions were going to legitimate causes. Economically, the boycott profoundly impacted multinational corporations operating in Malaysia. Brands like McD, KFC reported noticeable declines during the height of the movement. I remember dining in McDonald's last year during the decline. Workers had their pay cut, and it used to take like 30 to 45 minutes to go through the drive-thru in my neighborhood, which was a stronghold. When I was there, it took me only 5 minutes at the height of the escalation, and the McDonald's that I visited was no longer operating 24 hours. This unpredictability caused concern among other international companies with a presence in Malaysia. Some of the crowds were indeed boycotting the fast food chains because of the Palestinian conflict. However, it also spiraled into other conversations, non-linear. Some were complaining that the price of the fast food was no longer affordable and therefore escalating the boycott. So, as a result, the fast food chains responded by doing things like offering discounts over an extended period. At the same time, the boycott also created opportunities for local businesses and garage by the roadside. Malaysian-owned fast food chains such as Mary Brown saw a surge in customer traffic as people sought alternatives to boycotted brands. Seemingly, beverage companies capitalized by this sentiment position themselves as ethical alternatives to Nestle and Starbucks. For local SMEs, the boycott represented a unique opportunity to compete with global giants in ways previously unseen. During this time, many regular Malaysians with young families worked 2 to 3 jobs just to get by because of inflation. So I'm glad that at least not all the boycotts resulted in doom and gloom for local brands and franchise owners who sought for ways to earn an extra income. So the question is, why do all this? How do I, as someone who works in the branding and marketing industry, explain this to my clients and prospects? It took me a long time to read the news and forums to process what was going on, and is still actively developing in the news, especially now. At this moment, the war in Gaza has escalated again into neighboring countries who are now joining forces to combat Israel. Why are consumer brands vulnerable? But on the other hand, bigger brands like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Nvidia, Meta, almost immune to this boycott movement. This is something fascinating, and I'm making this up. I'm calling it phantom rallying. Malaysians who may have not had strong opinions on the Israel-Palestine conflict found themselves pressured to participate in the boycott movement due to societal expectations. On social media, failing to boycott certain brands was often seen as an indication of indifference to the Palestinian cause. This social pressure created an environment where people felt compelled to avoid certain brands, not necessarily out of conviction, but to avoid criticism from peers and the broader community, especially among Malay Muslims. This phenomenon highlighted the dynamic complex of the boycott. What began as a genuine expression of solidarity evolved into a societal expectation that people felt obliged to follow. If you're watching this, I urge you to read and understand and learn more about the conflict to help you decide, rather than being told what to do and what not to do. Remember that behind these brands, most people working there, opening the stores and running them, are actually Malaysians whose lives are tested by no fault of their own. And most of them, this is their main job with no safety net to fall back to. While fast food and retail brands bore the brunt of the boycott, certain large corporations, as I mentioned previously, remain conspicuously unaffected. Despite their known links to Israel, big tech companies were largely immune to the boycott, which is fascinating. This inconsistency revealed a paradox in the movement. Why some of these companies targeted while others were spared? Companies like McDonald's and Adidas, which are visibly integrated into our daily life, are easier to boycott than tech giants whose products and services run in the background and are seen as indispensable. My point is, it's easy to broadcast on social media and tell your friends that you're taking a stand and boycotting this fast food brand or that consumer brand, but you still have to post on social media to tell your friends about it. So it is seemingly impossible to boycott, for example, a hardware brand like Apple. Otherwise, how else can a person post on social media with a mirror selfie telling their friends what they are boycotting without the iPhone itself? How are kids going to stay calm over the weekends without their Disney Plus streaming? or even holiday season. Can you imagine gamers sacrificing and quitting gaming cold turkey because they are boycotting big tech? And GPUs is a part of big tech. The boycotts have seemingly done only surface level damage because nobody wants to go back to the Stone Age without consumer technology in their hands. This selective nature of consumer activism raises essential questions about the long-term impact of the boycott and its effectiveness in bringing about meaningful change. So, political anger only causes more chaos and uncertainty in the market. So, I inform you to make informed decisions, not just simply boycotting for the sake of it. For brands operating in Malaysia, particularly multinational corporations, the boycott movement presents both challenges and opportunities. Navigating this politically charged environment requires a nuanced understanding of local values and careful communication. Here are some strategies that brands can adopt to manage the risks associated with boycott and build stronger relationships with consumers. Firstly, understand local sentiments and values. Brands must develop a deep understanding of Malaysia's cultural and political landscape, including its strong support for the Palestinian cause. This requires keeping a pulse on public sentiment, being mindful of how global operations may be perceived locally, and collaborating with local companies if it helps. Secondly, practice corporate transparency. It is essential in an era of rapid information dissemination. Brands should proactively communicate their long-term policies, financial ties, and ethical commitments to consumers. Clear, honest messaging can help counteract misinformation and build trust with the public. Thirdly, engage in constructive dialogue with consumers. Maintaining open lines of communication with consumers is crucial. Brands should actively listen to feedback, address concerns, and be prepared to engage in meaningful conversations, particularly during a moment of crisis. And fourthly, be prepared for crisis management. A well-prepared crisis management strategy is essential. Brands must monitor online conversations and respond swiftly and empathetically to emerging issues. A proactive response can help mitigate potential damage and demonstrate accountability. In conclusion, the boycott movement in Malaysia, catalyzed by the Gaza conflict in October 2023, has had a wide-reaching effect on consumer behaviour and the market. While it has posed significant challenges for MNCs, it has also provided opportunities for local businesses to rise in prominence. The movement has brought to light important questions about consumer activism, political identity, and societal expectations. Understanding and navigating these dynamics will be crucial for brands operating in Malaysia to maintain consumer trust and long-term market presence. My heart goes out to those suffering from war and oppression, and I hope that we can do more to support the community closest to us that can actually make a difference rather than participate in phantom rallying like chasing a headless chicken with no endless direction. Thank you for staying until the end of this video. If you like branding related stories, I will appreciate a sub, and I will see you in the next episode.